The bills stay the same, but their meaning is actually changing constantly.
They now have to keep printing or we crash.
We've got this ticking time bomb.
Talking gold with the one and only Andrew Maguire.
Welcome to Live from the Vault.
Hi, my name is Shane Morand, and as you can see, I'm out of the vault right now in beautiful paradise, Costa Rica, for this week's episode of Live from the Vault. And welcome to the show that goes beyond the headlines and uncovers the truth about the precious metals industry and the effects on the global economy in these historic times. Now, we have exclusive access to experts and insiders, and we reveal information on this show and insights that you simply won't find anywhere else. Now, this week, we have the one and only Andrew Maguire, precious metals expert and whistleblower in the vault. And to help him pull back the curtain, we'll be joined from, again, in Live from the Vault right here, by Adam Trexler, Ph.D., and he's the founder of Valaurum, Inc. You're going to hear about that on today's show here. That's right. Adam is in the vault, and you're not going to want to miss this episode. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. Now, just before we get started here, please help spread the word. Keep spreading the word about this channel by hitting that like button. If you haven't already done it, hit the like button, share this information, and subscribe. Now, if you hit the bell right there, we'll notify you as each of these episodes goes live. For those who don't know Adam, let me just give you a little bit of an introduction. Adam Trexler is a PhD. He's the founder of Valaurum, Inc., an established, recognized leader in minting technology. And Valaurum really offers the smallest, most affordable, and secure form of physical precious metals in the world. And with that, let's head over to the UK and talking gold with the one and only Andrew Maguire and our special guest, Adam Trexler. Over to you, Andrew.
Well, Adam, it is actually a real privilege to have you on. I've been following you for a little while. You're a very innovative gentleman, and you've created something which really got my attention and all of us here at Kinesis. But very, very interesting guy. I'm really glad that we've got you here so our subscribers and many people can see exactly what is evolving here in the gold market, and it's pretty spectacular. But can I ask, Adam, because a lot of people won't know you yet, and I'm sure they will, but could you just explain a little bit about your background and what brought you to this, to really gold-backed banknotes? So I'll just tease it there. So.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, and great to be on. I've had a lifelong fascination with money. Sort of a money nerd as a kid. I collected quarters and that sort of thing. And I was always fascinated not just about physical money, but the power of money to do things, the power of money to accomplish things, whether it's laying sewers in the Victorian period or buying a bit of candy. When I was a student studying in the UK, it really, as an American, and we've had the privilege of not being concerned about the value of our money, being the reserve currency for most of my life. But when I studied in the UK, I was doing my PhD at the University of London. I was having to take student debt in American dollars and really pay attention to the fluctuating pound. And then there was this funny moment from my point of view, which was they changed the banknote design, and suddenly I had a bunch of £5 notes that were worth nothing. And I thought, hold on, this is terribly bizarre. They were no longer spendable. You could redeem them at the bank, to be fair. But I thought, this is a piece of paper that was something and now isn't something, or something quite different. And I just thought that has to be strange. And that really led me into a deep fascination. It was part of my PhD studying why currencies are valued, and all the different ways in the early 20th century people thought about that. And of course, this was at the precise moment of the collapse of the gold standard in the First World War, briefly reinstated, and here we are today with fiat currencies. But I was fascinated by, why do people value money? Why does that go away? How do people understand that value? And what's really behind all of that? And, of course, that led me to an interest in gold. And a bit later, when I learned about the underlying technology of the Aurum, I thought, this is going to change how people understand money. This is a historical moment. And I just had to get involved.
And so really, and you've just raised, obviously you've raised the subject of money and the function of money, and growing up with fiat currencies, etc. And so perhaps we could start by just using the dollar as a focus. Now, there's obviously very little doubt that the benchmark global world fiat currency is second to none in addressing a unit of account and a means of exchange, that function. But if a dollar bill is benchmarked against the oldest global currency, gold, then it really reveals its shortcomings.
I think so. And I think, the interesting thing from my point of view, and I'm always, it's nice to talk to money nerds. I count myself as one. You raise the classical three definitions of money, that it's simultaneously a means of account, which means that, we can keep our books in it. We can know how we're doing based on it. A medium of exchange. I can go down to the shop or affect any kind of trade, and a store of value. And we are in a really strange historical moment, which is we have fiat currencies. Governments are deeply committed to their fiat currencies, but they have, by design, abandoned the store of value function of money. And what I mean by that is twofold. First of all, of course, we know that there are currency devaluations of profound nature happening constantly. It's built into the system all through the world. There's always governmental currencies that are in the process of collapse. May that never happen to the dollar. May that never happen to the pound. Having said that, even if we say it's functioning as intended, central bank policy in the United States is to aim for 2% inflation. And they say that this has, various useful effects, toward creating full employment, pricing levels, et cetera, et cetera. But what that means really is that if I stash, in the crudest example possible, if I stash $100 bills under my mattress, I'm paying for the privilege. The bills stay the same, but their meaning is actually changing constantly. And that backing away from the store of value function that we have seen with fiat currency, means there's an opportunity for other kinds of currency to become of deep importance to the world's citizens.
And so that kind of brings me into so obviously you've created. I mean, I would love to know the mechanics and of the gold banknotes. Could you actually, because obviously what you're doing here is actually solving one of those issues by creating gold-backed banknotes. So I'd love to know the mechanics of it. Could you maybe break down how these banknotes can incorporate gold? I mean, these are notes held in your wallet, perhaps. And how do they offer perhaps a more tangible value compared to conventional paper currency that you're talking about?
Sure. I would just say they're different. And, another technical thing, and then we'll get off the nerdery a little bit, I think, Andy. Gold is a monetary instrument. I mean, the central banks, it's one of the key things that they hold because it has no counterparty risk. If gold is money to central banks, it's certainly money to you and I, operating on much smaller forces, at least in my portfolio. So the Aurum, the real intent of the Aurum is to make gold affordable, fungible, and easy to authenticate. So I'm going to show you something here. This is legal tender in Ghana. We've worked with 6 or 7 countries, more all the time. And really, this is, in all intents and purposes, it's like a banknote, but the gold is contained within. The way that we produce that, it's a vacuum deposition method where we have a deep space vacuum, and we bombard a gold plate with individual ions in a plasma, and it breaks off individual atoms of gold, and it collects on a space-age polymer. That collection process can be very finely controlled with electricity, and we can build up precise layers of gold on the order of magnitude of 300 to 6,000 nanometers, collected on a thin film, printed, banknote level security features added. You have effectively a bill, a very flexible, usable bill that can have $2 to $150 worth of gold in tangible form. And that tangible form is very important to us. It's not a promise. In that sense, it's not a note. It's not even, we use bill to describe the form factor, but we really call it an Aurum. It's an invention. And that invention lets people own gold in quotidian amounts.
This is really interesting. So now, and I'll tell you why there's so many things that are going on, wheels within wheels at the moment. Now, we're currently in the UK, and I believe you're in the UK, and you.
I'm in the United States.
I do apologize.
Okay. Yeah, not at all.
Okay. Apologies for that. Okay, then you may not know of what's going on at the moment. There's been a massive cash debanking process going on in this country. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Nigel Farage, but I know him. I've been a guest on his show. And what he revealed quite recently when he was debanked by Coutts Bank, which is a very notable bank, was that it turned out that he didn't agree with their principles. Therefore, they debanked him, even though banking should be a utility, which is really of the same value as electricity and water. I mean, it is that important. But to start to debank someone, and then he tried to, I'm just providing an example, he then tried to he went to 14 other banks, and funnily enough, they all refused him. Now, it may be because he was a politically exposed person. So what he did was ask for essentially what you call a freedom of information request, and it came through that he just disagreed with their process and or their way of thinking. But then what that revealed, after doing some more digging, what it revealed is that 1 million bank accounts in this country over the last 2 years have been closed primarily on people who touch cash, who bank cash. And in fact, it turns out, and even now it's on the mainstream media, 1,000 bank accounts a day are cancelled for people who use physical cash notes, even though it's a legal product. And so it's interesting. So to me, this is really, really timely, because that value that is stored in that bill that you just described cannot be taken away. And yet it doesn't require a bank to accept it necessarily.
I think that's right. And it really asks for a standard that is not provided by government, but is provided by a global market outside of a particular government. And I view this as an instrument of personal freedom, insofar as whether you're a Kenyan farmer, a Chinese factory worker, an American barista, you have access to a global standard of value by what's in your pocket. And that's an extraordinary capability of gold.
And as much as you could take $100 bill to any country in the world and they would accept it, that note that you just bill that you just held up just now could be accepted by anybody globally too, equally, because it is of
Not
value?
yet, I would have to say, Andy. I have to have a bit of humility about that. I think we certainly don't have the recognition of the $2 trillion worth of USD paper out there, nor the British pound. But the underlying value of gold is there, and we believe that this can be a world-changing form of value, and that is the intent.
I think, yeah, and I think it's a process, and I think obviously there isn't anyone. Of course, perhaps we're in a little bit of a siloed world here because we live and breathe gold, and obviously everybody that we relate to probably understands it. But I mean, I think you could probably go onto the street in America and offer a gold coin to somebody or a candy bar, and perhaps it wouldn't be realized the value of that gold to everybody. And so yes, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's interesting. The global South, as we call it, is very much looking now to move towards not competing with the dollar, but alongside the dollar to create. And this is interestingly enough, because we're very involved with this BRICS summit that's going on right now. In fact, also Kinesis today just launched their gold POSPay contract today. With it was formally released by the Vice President of Indonesia, and it addresses the millions of unbanked, underbanked Indonesians who can access gold on the blockchain. Whether you're in a little village, but they can access it through the post office system. So it's interesting, but I think what I'm really trying to get to here from a bigger scale, when we look at the commodity markets, and you're talking about not just oil, you're talking electricity, you're talking all of these components, it's a multi-trillion-dollar market, and ultimately multi-trillion-dollar. So now we have the BRICS summit undergoing right now. And we have Sergei Glaznev, and we have his outline. And we actually got good information directly from him while he was on holiday 2 weeks ago, where he outlined his two processes. One very much like the SDR, but the other one is a gold is a 20 commodity, most liquid 20 commodity currency, which actually has a gold element attached to it, benchmarked to gold. So this is really interesting because then you've got 30 or 40 members wanting to join. We heard Lula today from Brazil saying, we need something like this. And it looks like this currency, this gold is coming back as a current, certainly in some form or another, as a currency where you can pin a commodity to it, and you can now have a trade on that commodity based upon the anchor of gold. So this is what are your thoughts here? What's this doing?
I think it's a very exciting moment and an interesting one. I think it's I tend to think on decade scales. So, what will happen over the next 6 months? I feel like I'm a terrible predictor of that. What seems absolutely clear to me is that the post-World War II regime of the dollar is under a lot of pressure from internal and external forces. And I think that other governments of the world are looking to gold increasingly. They're increasing their gold holdings. These are public figures of how much gold they're stocking. And the tangibility and the ability to move incredible amounts of value with gold mean that it's only going to increase in value and in importance. And I think that it makes complete sense that various countries are looking for alternatives. And the metal that's been around for 2,500 years as a store of value is probably going to continue to be one. And there are a lot of trades wanting to be pinned to it. So I think this is exciting. I think it's almost an inevitability. Who does it first? Is it a country favorable or foe of the United States. It almost doesn't matter. It's like the U.S. holds gold. Turkey's stockpiling gold. Russia's stockpiling gold. China has encouraged its citizens to own gold. It's sort of like both friendly and foe countries need water as well. So this is a commodity. This is a monetary commodity that's only going to increase in purpose and in intent, and is really subject to the ingenuity of individuals and governments to pin value to it. But it is a good neutral carrier of value between parties, and I think that's exciting because I think that we're going to see a resurgence of gold's importance in the public imagination.
Yes, and I think the other thing that caught our attention this year, and it's been a 2-year lead into it, and we were tracking it very, very closely, was the implementation, the Bank of International Settlements, the implementation of Basel III net stable funding ratio regulations to underpin gold. So essentially what happened was on the 1st of January, gold, over-the-counter gold, if you're a liquidity provider that is making a market, foreign exchange markets in gold, for the first time in 50 years, you've had to have physical gold to actually back that position up. Now, that's changed gold into a first-tier asset that actually competes with treasury. And this is such an interesting dynamic because and I don't think it's a coincidence, Adam, that on the 1st of January, Sparebank, who we have been done business in the past with and know people there quite well, digitized physical gold on the blockchain, on the Stellar blockchain on the 1st of January. Interestingly. I mean, and it's almost as if they took what Kinesis does and did it. They put it on the blockchain. And I think what's happened is I don't think it was a coincidence because I think this is leading out to 2024. And I think what led them to do it was after the weaponization of the dollar. I don't know what your viewing on that is, but I mean, it clearly was weaponized to a degree. And I think they're looking for solutions. But interestingly, it's gold that is their solution. So just your thoughts around these things.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm an expert on the Basel III information. And I want to be very clear about that. The trend I see that's very interesting, and one of the things that drew me to Kinesis was it's one thing to have a peg to a commodity that's abstract. To me, that's not the value of gold. Saying, I'll pay you according to the contract, it has to be underpinned by the physical gold. And the ability to take delivery of the gold is one of its primary utilities. That, yesterday I was holding a 200-ounce gold bar. It was almost $400,000 worth of gold. That you can hold that in your hand and have that much condensed value. That you could have in your trunk, millions of pounds or dollars worth of gold. The ability to take physical delivery, and that is a real thing, recognized all over the world. And I think that some in the financial sector have gotten a little bit cute with gold, what gold is, and without having that mechanism for actual physical gold, a gold indicator doesn't let the gold market operate correctly, and it doesn't give the intrinsic value of gold that we should all be interested in. I think that the ability to take physical delivery keeps people honest, because I can always go and get my gold. And I'm interested in banks and other groups like Kinesis, where they say, go ahead, take the gold. It's 1-to-1. It's available. And that gives the confidence that there is a true value backing it. And I think we'll see more and more institutions moving to that model. I hope so, because I think that's where the lack of counterparty risk really, the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it. I mean, one needs to be absolutely sure you can redeem at any point that physical. What's the point of having it in a vault where you may not be able to access it at some point because maybe there's been a bail-in legislation and you can't. Somebody will say, "No, I have to join you with the key because we need to bail you in on your gold and your vaults, or as well as your currencies." These things have happened, and bail-in legislations is certainly out and around now. And I think it's always a backstop for any kind of an issue. But it's interesting because this is actually what you've created here is the ability to embed or create a bill that is gold, and also the idea that one can also use that as a store of value, but also we could put that on the blockchain too. And so therefore, yes, you can take delivery of it any time, but I think this is one of the things that we're partnering with you at Kinesis is the ability to actually try and create a yield out of something which you normally could never get a yield out of. And by putting that on the blockchain, it's trustless blockchain. You can have confidence that is still yours. It is in a vault. It is accessible to you at a click of a mouse. And actually, I'm coming to think of it, never occurred to me, but it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper for me to take delivery of your bills than it would be a big bar of gold or silver. So that's interesting too.
Well, and it's interesting. What do you mean by cheaper or more expensive? We could talk about that too. But that's exactly it. I'm interested in what does the gold monetary system of the future look like? And we think we're players in that. And we think Kinesis is a player in that. From my point of view, there has been $1 trillion investments into money as a medium of exchange. You think of PayPal, the Visa network, the MasterCard network, Venmo, all of these fortunes made around media of exchange that are fundamentally neutral to the underlying value. In contrast, there's been almost nothing at a technological level invested into how do we store value and how do we connect that to media of exchange. And these are never really governmental things. These are there's underlying sometimes governmental stores of value, but it's really always the private sector. And so we want to be part of that next system that really thinks about how do we move value, how do people hold value dependably. And I think that's a multi-trillion-dollar problem, and I think Valaurum has a very interesting angle of attack on that we don't see anywhere else. And I think Kinesis is doing something extremely important as well, which is providing liquidity, allowing people to actually spend gold and meaningfully hold their cash reserves in gold that they could take delivery of, but that they could also spend to buy a coffee or a pen or a car. And creating that total system in gold really gives consumers a choice of how do they hold value. And that to me is of profound first importance.
That's a huge picture. I mean, the head's starting to spin here. This is huge. That's a massive thing you just raised.
It's huge. I think it's huge. I think it's I think it's tens to hundreds of trillions of dollars of value start to be channeled in the kinds of directions we're talking about. Because as I said earlier, you can hold a stack of banknotes and they lose value. They always will. And the recognition of value is becoming more and more complicated in this world. What do you do if you're in a country that outlaws dollars? Mm-hmm. What do you do if there's a currency crisis in the paper currency that you've decided to hold? Let's always remember that paper currency is a global market. Many of the $100 bills go outside of the US. You said it would be a standard of value elsewhere. It is the standard of value elsewhere. If you travel, it's one of the best currencies to have. That's not because the US government made you take it. It's because paper currency is a market. And pounds, euros, dollars are competitive products on a global stage. Gold is another competitive product, but we think we have an angle of attack to make the best gold product.
I think what's also interesting from my understanding is you've started with small amounts, which is to me key. If you're going to attack this problem, it has to be micro amounts of gold sometimes.
I think so. And there's a funny thing. We have a partner with Goldbacks. They're a marketing company that's done some phenomenal things, creating a tremendous grassroots movement in the United States. And I helped Jeremy Corden design that program. I hope he thinks I helped him. One of the things we talked about was what denominations are important. They have 5 denominations based on the thousandth of an ounce. And I said, well, there's an interesting thought experiment here, which is how do people hold paper money? And the most common banknotes in the United States are the 1 and the 100. Now, here's why that's interesting. They can print any darn thing they want. If $461 banknotes were the most desirable, you can be sure they would print them. But they're not. $100 is sufficient that with a stack of them, you can effect almost any purchase, but it's not so big that it's unwieldy to use. The 1 is great for individual transactions. And so we tried to design a series of values that fit that. And indeed, most of the value continues to be in 50 goldbacks, which is 1/20th of an ounce. And the most by volume that we print are in the 1 goldback at 1,000th of an ounce. And it's a U-shaped curve that exactly follows the Fed. There's a market behavior there. What I think is interesting for the gold market is most of your listeners will probably hold their physical in ounce denominations. It's a nice coin size. It's not a very good transaction size. It's far too big. It's actually anxiety provoking. You don't make that many transactions in a day with a $1,900, what is it, probably 1,500 pound unit. It's just not an appropriate unit. So how do we create gold that has appropriate units for what people actually need to do? You need some kind of technology that's going to break the gold up into essentially atoms and make it divisible. And we think that we've done that in an elegant, clean way that's repeatable. But you need something like that. I've seen little laminated cards with bits of wire, but it's pretty difficult to authenticate or have it be precise.
Yes, and I think some of the things that you have built in, I mean, I took a little look at how, I mean, some of the things you've built in are groundbreaking. I mean, this is fantastic technology that you've built in to detect any kind of fraudulent activity that would be attempted on your bills?
Trying, Andy. We have several patents. We use a number of standards that are recognized in the government stamp and banknote industry, incorporating more all the time. We think that we are already far harder to counterfeit than gold coin, which to me is very important. I think that the coin is a 2,500-year-old authentication standard that is really in trouble. And what's interesting about the Aurum platform is that it can incorporate more and more anti-counterfeiting features, conventional banknote features, and special features unique to gold. And we think we have a 5-year runway of absolutely phenomenal security features that will make this the most difficult to counterfeit monetary product in the world. And when you think about it, I have a lot of friends who are obsessed with gold who say, my coin has been the standard forever. But if I can't hand that to you and you accept it for payment in an untrusting situation, it's not money in the same way that a $100 bill is money. The point of money is that I can not know you, never have seen you before, and you will accept my currency directly intra-party, not through a bank. And I would argue that the gold coin and a gold and a laminated card is not that today. I wish it were, but it's not. What we're trying to do, and it's an educative process and a technological process at the same time, is to develop a standard where people will begin to have that behavior again. And that's an important feature of making gold a monetary instrument again. And until I know how to recognize a $100 bill, I won't accept its value. And the same is true of the Aurum. So we are building that out. We are developing a public. Goldback has done phenomenal things to create that public so that people will recognize. And I've been to Utah and bought breakfast, lunch, and dinner in gold. You can buy insurance. You can go to a hardware store and buy nails and a hammer. You can make a house with gold. And that's a phenomenal development and one we only see increasing.
That's so interesting. And you've raised so many issues there. I mean, so for example, that's one of the things that, again, I bring this back to Kinesis is that, look, if I take a gold coin out of a refinery, the minute I've done that, it's no longer trustworthy to somebody I don't know. And I think that's a really good point you raised there. Or if I go to a COMEX vault, they won't want us to deliver it to me anyway. But basically, if I take delivery, the minute it exits the warehouse, it has to be re-refined. It has to be re-assessed. And I think this is again, it brings together blockchain and gold, the ability to know it's in your name. The minute that gold passes a quality assurance framework, it lands in a vault that is a Kinesis vault in this case, then obviously, then you can use that to buy a coffee. You can use that in an untrustworthy environment because it's on the blockchain, it's trustless. And you can also bring that back in anytime you want. So what you're talking about is so accurate. What use is a 1 ounce coin when you're walking down the street in an untrusted environment?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think about these networks all the time, and they're weird assemblages of institutions, various kinds of insurance, trustworthiness, banking institutions, the MasterCard network, the Visa network, public awareness, an ability to authenticate, insurance policies. It's a weird assemblage that we create to create a system of trust. I personally think that the ability to buy gold, as you can currently in the Kinesis system, at spot or very, very close to it with, 100 ounce bars, good delivery bars, is really exciting for people. And I like that. And the ability to then take some out in Aurum is very interesting and have that circulate alongside. Of course, there's a price difference. And I want to talk about price for a second, because you actually said one of my main talking points. The good delivery bar is a fantastic standard for interbank transfers. It's about $800,000 per bar. It needs to be melted every time. This is not a transactional money for individuals. It's just not. And the physical gold market, which is, my field, has been obsessed with buying gold at spot price or getting as close to spot price as you possibly can. That spot price is really just a price of moving a good delivery bar at a transaction size appropriate for banks. There's nothing special about it besides that. And I say, buy the best gold, buy the most usable gold, buy the gold that's at a fair price, but buy it in a good standard for individuals. And I want to be very clear, our premiums are higher than a good delivery bar, higher than an ounce. We have to split a single coin effectively into 1,000 pieces with 1,000 pieces of security printing, atomic deposition. It's expensive. It's expensive compared to minting something that could have been minted in Greece 2,000 years ago. But if the standard is correct, people will accept it. And if that's consistent, then it's fair and it's based on the underlying gold value. And gold backs have proven that out with a relatively high premium, but they've proved the desirability of it out over the last 4 years or so. And the market has been remarkably consistent at a pretty high premium. So I encourage people to think about not so much premium, but a true standard of gold with the utility that they need.
That is tremendously important. And in fact, everyone I've mentioned, as soon as we made the announcement about our affiliations here, is that immediately, and I'm talking about some of the biggest gold guys out there said, get me some. I want some of that. And of course, it is because people see the bigger picture here. What you're just outlining is you've got to start somewhere. But what you're addressing is a much bigger problem here. And I think this is really exciting. And I think the next thing most people would say to me is, but if I want to redeem it, how do I do that? I mean, in other words, if I want to know that it is gold, how do I do that? And I think you must get that question from time to time.
Well, I think there's two separate ones there, Andy, or maybe three, but I'll try to prize them apart.
Okay.
One of the things that's so exciting to us about the Kinesis partnership is that, you have the standard, the KAU. It's a very close to spot price product. The idea that I understand is if people could take their Aurum, send them in, take them to a physical site, and then get KAU with the premium going in and out, that's a very good mechanism. What Goldback has done as well is create a whole network with their bills where people can spend and spend them for essentially a conversion of face value. That's a much more liquid market. And of course, gold dealers will typically buy them back too. No gold dealer will promise this because then it becomes a security. But there's a ready market in gold. There's a ready market in gold products. Gold backs are a part of that. What I'm interested in is how do we create, over the next years, a system where people are not so focused on going to a redemptive dealer, that the dealer helps issue these things, but they know they can spend them and find a ready market wherever they go. It's not about having your neighborhood coin guy be the only one who will buy back the thing he sold to you. I think when we can get to a situation where anybody will take your gold, when Andy, we haven't yet had the pleasure of meeting, but after this conversation, if I handed you some Aurum and you said thank you very much and gave me something like in kind, that's where we should be trying to get to. If you believe in gold, that's where we should be. And I think dealers have a critical part in that, in terms of distribution and in terms of receiving back. But as more trust is built, that's really what we should be looking to. I think you had another question about redemption and value. Maybe you're asking about the underlying gold value. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Good. That's very important to us. So this product is no good if you can't get the melt value of the gold back. This product has been designed so that 100% of the stated value, or this is 1/1000th of an ounce, 100% of that can be recovered in a fire assay process. And we do that every single day on every single one of our runs. We recover gold from Aurum every single day. And you know that because we have printing errors all the time. We have a strict quality assurance, so you have to be able to recover it to manufacture it. But the equipment necessary for recovery could be purchased by somebody for a couple $1,000s. A jeweler would have the equipment necessary. It's a bad value proposition because you're just now destroying all of the value that went into making that bill, but it is recoverable. And we do it all the time. We're happy to supply, third-party assayers who will do it as well. And a number of our customers indeed assay bills to prove out the value of the gold. And that's possible to do in a COMEX accredited way.
Absolutely. No, I get that. And it really, I guess I knew that. I knew that what you were going to say. But I think it's just one of those questions which people pop up and do, they naturally have that question. Now, the thing is that's, I think is also interesting is that when you, on this journey that you're on, which is a huge, massive journey, and you outline it really well. Now you're working with other countries at this point, where that might be that seems to be a good place to start, where if a government is issuing this currency and then the people are using that currency, then you've already achieved a big chunk of that trust issue.
I think so. I think it's in pockets still. I mean, to be quite humble, Andy, there's $10 trillion worth of paper currency circulating in the world. All of the gold issued by Valaurum is the tiniest fraction of that. We have so far to go. What I think is exciting is the trust hurdle is actually lower than with paper currency. It's not about will this particular government be trustworthy for the period of time in which I want to hold this. It's will gold remain a standard of value over that time period? I think it has a pretty good track record. So we just need to continue to build up awareness, and it's catching like wildfire. Our biggest problem is how do we make more of these things?
Yeah, and I think I don't. You've been so generous with your time. I just wanted one of the subjects I wanted to quickly address is governments around the world are trying to impose digital currencies upon us, centralized digital currencies, and that's part of the problem that I think was happening with the debanking in this country, where social media networks were being looked at by the banks, and essentially creating a social credit system that if they didn't like something, yes, cash was one of the issues, but also they didn't like something that you believed, which was against their mantra, so to speak. They would be tracking you. Now, there's no reason for a bank to be tracking individuals' social media posts, but they do. So to me, it says that somehow along the way, there's an interest somewhere in creating central bank digital currencies. But to me, when I think about it, while it might happen in certain countries, when you've just described how the $100 bill in America is just so important, just so accepted, surely to me, that's one of the countries where you'll see massive opposition to that.
We hope so. We hope that the United States will oppose a CBDC. I think it's a real threat to freedom, and it's a real threat to the operation of money. I'm personally deeply opposed to that. I think it would be phenomenal for business, but not the right direction for the world. To me, it's clear that there will be governments that adopt this. It's too tempting a lever of control for some of the world's regimes. The ability to constrain how people spend what they've earned is a profound break on freedom, unlike anything the world's ever seen. And I hope that our Constitution in the United States will protect us from that kind of governmental incursion. What I think, in the sort of long arc, I hope I don't sound too grand. In the long arc, what I see is that once the invention of money happened, and I mean physical money in this case, once the physical invention of money happened, it has never gone away. People have always wanted to exchange standards of value, and I think that's probably an inevitability. I think if the government pulls out of that, if any government pulls out of that, people will provide. It's too important. In the 2008 crisis, very famously, there was a shortage of cash in the United States, and people were stockpiling and exchanging huge bottles of Tide detergent to use as currency. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible standard, but people trusted its trustworthiness and that everybody would need it. And that's why it became money in extremis. I think that a gold bill is a better solution than that. But the market will provide, and that's why in countries where their paper isn't trusted, U.S. dollars flow in. And you could find U.S. dollars in many, many places that the United States hasn't issued them, in most countries in the world, if not all. So we think that there is a true market for physical money. We think there's a true market for digital currencies as well. That's been proven out over the last 30 years. And Kinesis is an exciting, groundbreaking chapter in that. But we think there's a true market for physical currencies, and they're going to find their way. It's been happening since Marco Polo. It's been happening since the spread of Roman coin all over Europe and Asia. This is an inevitability. And the real question is, how do you become the greatest standard of an era? How do you become something that's deeply trustworthy? And that's what we are on the path of.
That's a fantastic answer. And I really do. I mean, some of the stuff we talked about today, I want people to come back and listen to it a couple of times. This is really good stuff. And I think that we've only just touched the edge of what is you're on a massive journey here. It is huge. What you're achieving here is huge. And I think, I want people to come and visit you. I want people to come and look at your product, to adopt your product. I know everyone I've spoken to said, get me some. Well, obviously we send them to the website, for your website. But I mean, this is the only one thing is I don't want to spend any of them because they're just so beautiful. I think that's the only thing. But yeah. I know. So if I've got some pounds, they'll go a hell of a lot quicker. To be honest, I haven't spent any of them yet. But there'll come a day when, as you say, the next, who knows, the next time they try and force a mask on us or lock us up. I mean, who knows if that may ever happen again. And I think there might be a big pushback if they try. But then at that point there, maybe I will have to use those. And this is great comfort to me. Well,
I hope so. And the real question for me is around the human need for security and future predictability. And all of our personal wellness and all of our civilization's ability to build things is based on those things. And if you think about it, the store of value function of money underpins both of those. So as we are able to predict the value of something over time, we can build to a longer purpose. And that to me is how we develop societies. The idea of planting a tree that can be harvested in 30 years, or building a railroad, a decades-long project, but one that had infinite value to the society underpinning it. What are our next projects, and how do we look to that future and feel confident in the value that we're describing? That's what we all have to build together, and that's the basis of a global civilization. And so now I'm definitely getting too heady, but I think we're all participants in that, and that's very exciting. And I'm excited for what the future holds, and I'm excited to help us all think about how do we ascribe that value.
I love meeting people with passion and energy, and that you certainly have in abundance. And I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And I really do wish we could circle back at some point, and perhaps early next year, when we've got lots to look back on. And I want, in the meantime, can you give us, and obviously we'll post your website address on there, but so what should people do? So they can just turn up, read about you, they can buy at your website?
Yeah, a couple different things. In the US, all of the major bullion shops online carry our products. So if you have a trusted source, please go to them. Goldbacks is a huge source of information as well. And of course, our website has a lot of useful resources backing up the things that I've been talking about, going more deeply into them, and talking about the standard of the Aurum and what it is. So please look at our website. Look at Goldbacks, look at Kinesis. Go to your own trusted bullion store, and if they don't have it, ask them why, Andy. But happy for people to go to whatever retailer that they choose if they should wish to purchase.
And we certainly have your product. And it's whatever works for people. But thank you so much for sharing some of your, really great knowledge here. And I know you're well researched, and it's a privilege to have had you here today. And I know a lot of our subscribers will really thank us for bringing you on. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Andy, and always happy to talk. Let's get back together. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, Andrew Maguire and Adam Trexler, for another fascinating discussion. And remember, buy physical and make sure it's 1-to-1, and understand the difference between what Andy affectionately calls the casino paper gold and silver markets and the actual physical gold and silver markets. They're not the same. Don't be fooled. And there you have it. That's all we have for you today on another amazing episode of Live from the Vault. Now, remember to help keep spreading the word about this channel by hitting that like button, share this information, and also subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you hit that bell, click on that bell right there, we will notify you in real time as each episode goes live. And with that, we'll see you next time right here on Live from the Vault. See you then.